Chapter 5. Found the girl, but got myself confined. The inside of the cavern was completely enveloped in darkness. Real fingertips produced an illuminating flame, for the sake of advancing. If asked if this was cold, it was obviously cold. But in comparison to outside, it was much better due to the absence of the gale winds. That being said, without clothes specifically designed to guard off low temperatures, being here would be unacceptable. Initially I wanted to call out for the girl to know that we are here, but real quickly vetoed my idea. If it happens to be a demon further inside the cavern, it would surely be roused by human voices, and when that happens, there is the possibility of him finding the young villager first in this confined environment. With a strong feeling that we shouldn't stray from each other, we stepped into the cave and then, at the innermost part that the flame illuminated, we could see her figure. Trembling on her knees, the young girl fit perfectly the description we had previously heard. I had to force myself from giving an expression of joy as I directed my steps towards her. She slowly raised her face to the sound of my steps. "Oni-chan, who are you?" "Don't worry, we came to help." To ease her worries I touched her with my hand. It was as cold as grasping ice. "This is bad. Her body temperature has lowered too much already." Checking her face under the dim light of Real's fire magic is enough to see that her complexion is already quite blue. At this rate, she might even break down from the cold before we put the clothes we brought for her. Even if I'm slightly reluctant, it's better if I settle this in one go. First thing is me taking off my valued clothes for the cold. So I stripped everything off from my upper body. Let me add a note that I'm extremely cold right now. Kanna? At the sight of me who had suddenly started a strip show, Real's eyes became monochrome. She can complain later. But right now there is no time to put any explanations into words. More than anything, I feel so cold that it's a pain to open my mouth to talk. Forgive this for a while. Shivering with cold, my voice gave an one-sided notice to this girl as I proceeded to take off all of her clothes. That done, I began to wear my clothes again, but I put her inside as well this time. When I pressed the girl's skin onto my chest, it felt terribly cold. For a moment I wanted to push her away, but I buried those feelings as I put my arms around her, making sure of holding her with my whole strength. "Oi, just what is the deal?" The fastest way to warm up the body is doing it from skin to skin. More than that, Real. Please increase the fire. I'm seriously freezing here. I might even end up freezing. After realizing my intention, Real used her two hands to make the fire bigger, and the heat increased accordingly. The girl's deprived body temperature was returning by using me as a warmer. Ah, how refreshing! Yet again the blissful physical heat made me spill tears. When you suddenly stripped off, I seriously started doubting your sanity. Naturally, I can't boss around a woman like you with words like "undress quickly." Between my own temperature and the fire, the young girl is radiating now heat of her own. She has also stopped trembling. I could only breathe a sigh as we evaded the most dangerous situation. Maybe because she regained the normal temperature, the senses of the girl seem to have returned, and she now gazes at me from a point-blank distance. "Sorry for having stripped you so suddenly." As I apologized, I patted her head. The girl shook her head to refute me. "When you are freezing, you should do it like this," is what my father said. Apparently, over here it's also widespread knowledge that an emergency measure against cold is to increase the warm skin to skin. Since the Lolicon label won't be added to me, once again I'm compelled to breathe in relief. "Well, why are you at this place?" Since you didn't return by nightfall, everyone in the village was incredibly worried, you know? Because Okasan caught a cold, I came to pick up medicinal herbs, but the outline was just like we had imagined it. As she was done picking up herbs for her mother, the howl of the wolves could be heard. In a fluster she hurried down the mountain, and just like I did she treated upon the slope, falling through the cliff. Even then, she could feel quite close to the roar of the wolves. Thus she could only think of seeking refuge in the cave that was in front of her. And it was then that the weather turned into a snowstorm. It became impossible to leave. You got cold to the point you couldn't move anymore. As Real added the last bit, the village daughter nodded quietly in a sorrowful manner. I'm very sorry. Don't worry about it, as long as you are unharmed. It's okay. The girl narrowed her eyes comfortably as I placed my hand on her head with a heartwarming face. Taken by the mood, Real also surfaced a smile. Normally she dons a very dignified look. But yet again I realize that superb beauties like her really need to smile like this. Very well, since the girl is safe. We have no more business in this mountain, that's true. From the bag I was carrying, Real took the clothes we had brought for the girl and proceeded to dress her on them. As this was happening, a large doo-oo-oon resounded, as if it was the roar of a stomach, followed by a small incessant trembling. The feeling continued and small pebbles kept falling from the ceiling. The vibration and sound that stopped quickly enough were followed by a rather strong wind current that poured from the entrance. The gust of wind settled down in a few seconds, and as it did, large amounts of sweat poured from my back. Real-san, I somehow have an incredibly bad premonition. Coincidentally, me too. I noticed that Real's face had gone stiff. Once again I checked that the girl and I have properly set our clothes on. The village girl buried her face in the cotton of her garment while enjoying its warmth. Unfortunately I can't afford such allowance in this weather. Real is not present among us. She went to check the condition of the entrance. As she returned, her countenance was quite grim. It looks like that bad premonition was on the mark. For the looks of it. Yeah. It's completely buried. That shaking and roaring from before are probably the work of a snow slide. And then, the reason why the wind blew so intensely was because the avalanche was pushing air in as it was blocking the entrance. Melting it with magic? I gave it a try and proved impossible. With my capacity I would exhaust completely my magic without making a hole in that wall of snow. How about using that large sword as a shovel? Just what do you think of other people's loved swords? But, I also thought about it. However, the piled up snow is so much that it's now compressed and has high density. Right now is similar to bedrock in firmness. Digging through there would be unreasonable. Does endowment magic allow self-strengthening? If that's possible, we could. Yes. As you have surmised, increasing your own strength is possible. It's common to use it as an ace when it comes to fighting. However, unlike spells that increase tolerances, increasing the capacity of your own body has a big recoil and can't be put into use for long. We don't know how thick the blockade actually is. It would be better not to try it for defense. It's enough with merely coating the surface of your own body with the spell. However, since for strengthening you are using magic to mess around with the internal functions of your body at a muscle and bones level, the backlash has to be serious. It's like artificially trying to increase an already huge fire scene. Maybe I should even enlarge that example with many folds to get a proper description. Then, the conclusion? We are completely trapped after clearing one dangerous situation. You find yourself in the next one. We should think positively from now on. What just was pointed out by Real does have some truth. For example, if the avalanche would have occurred as we were exiting the cave, we would surely have been involved. When thinking about that, perhaps this was our fortune. But the fact that we encountered an avalanche makes our luck value switch to minus already. Don't say it. I feel like holding my head at that. We could only muster a sigh at the events. Well, what do we do, Kanna? Don't ask me something I want to hear myself. Even if I complain, I need to squeeze some ideas. Real, let me hear it straight. For how long would you be able to use magic? Activating spells obviously consume the user's magical strength. What's necessary to fully recover one's own depleted magic power is to have a good night of rest. Conversely, as long as one keeps casting spells, it won't be possible for your own magic to gradually recover. In the current situation, our last ray of hope is Real's magic. I unconsciously protect my own body against the cold. There are no issues with myself. The thing is, the elemental magic I'm able to use. There are obviously individual differences with the amount of magic each person possesses. Additionally, even if several people cast the very same magic spell, the magic consumption will be different in each case due to differences of suitability to that magic type. The amount of magical energy that Real possesses seems to be quite outstanding compared to any regular person. As her speciality lies in reinforcement type of spells, consumption for elemental magics can't be good compared to the ones from her natural trait. I can't exactly tell right now. I can't hold this peace for too long. And lasting until morning would be out of the question. Humans need heat to be healthy. And right now we don't have at hand any sort of meal that would grant us that effect. The village girl and I have no means to increase our bodily heat other than rely on Real's magic, magic that can't be possibly held for long. It's a big pinch. Surely, a big punch a pinch? This girl repeats after us. Yeah, an ultra-absolute pinch. The level was increased. It might not sound like much from our talk, but this is a serious pinch. Help will probably come with the morning, right? They will probably come, but it's not sure if they'll know about this cave. Oju-san, are people aware of this cave in the village? Maybe. I think that Otu-san and the others know about. But, it's my first time coming here. It's not like I want unreasonable wishes granted. But at least our luck should change a little bit more for the better. It's still too early to be relieved. Reasonable enough, but if prospects become zero, then it would be hard to keep your mind together. Well, right now there is nothing we can do about this other than leave it to heavens and eagerly await for tomorrow's rescue. Fayuoin Hekushi. The freezing wind blows. The girl and I sneezed simultaneously. Not only the village girl, as there was no choice but for me to hug her low-temperature body. So my body feels quite cold now. Catching a cold would be one thing, but there's the uncertainty if we'll even make to tomorrow. Oi, are you okay? I can't be okay now. It's obvious I'm super cold. As a complaint escaped me, I noticed the essence of the natural phenomenon that has just transpired. The wind blew in a cave that's supposedly sealed shut. To make certain of this, I turned my way towards the bottom of the cave. What is it, Kanna? If there is wind blowing, that means that the air is flowing inside. If the air is flowing inside, that means there has to be some sort of hole or access to the outside. The entrance we used is already blocked by the avalanche. If despite that the wind still blows, then there has to be another exit to this cave. The value of our luck seems to keep increasing. It might not be necessarily big enough for a person to pass, you know? Even if it's like that, we just need to have Real use brute force to enlarge the hole, right? If muscle reinforcement can't be used for a long duration, then it won't be a problem if it's used for only a bit, isn't? Pure muscle strength, enough to send fully armored knights flying, enough to produce huge gusts of winds like the ones from this mountain. Unless the rock around it is extremely hard, there is no mistake in placing our hopes on the rocks being blown away. Even if we can't turn around our current situation, rather than just regret it later. Wouldn't it be better to try everything we can while we can still move? True enough. I got it. I'll go with your idea. It's great that she agreed with me. Once that's settled, I show my back towards the young girl. I'm not sure how much we'll need to walk. So hop on. Why yeah. The village girl couldn't get our talk just now. She only seemed to have understood that we needed to move out and obediently climbed on me. Anakin's back is wide. Being a man not just for show, I wonder if the guys that have cute younger sisters feel like this? Just by carrying her, I somehow feel my heart fulfilled. Then Oni-chan, let's go ahead. Of course. How did I ended up as your sister? Nah, it's that, you know? Going by the air you seem older. I'm only 18 years old. You really are older, only 18 even though you are from the long-ear tribe. Elves and half-elves' growth is not really that different from humans up until the 20 years old. Why were you thinking something unusual about me? You are always so composed, being experienced in several areas. I thought you were from a well-versed age, and if I heard what actual concrete age you were thinking, I'll make mincemeat out of you with this blade. You are making it sound scary, so please spare me from that. Even for half-elves. It looks like women of all origins are concerned with their age, and it seems to be something common regardless of the world. It can be seen thanks to the illumination magic that Real is using. The scenery is completely made from rock without exceptions. The sense of time is being affected due to the lack of progress even if we haven't walked for 5 minutes. There is not only stamina to consider, but we also shouldn't stray too far to the point we lose our return path. While thinking that I saw a light at the bottom of the cave. This somehow looks amazing. We eventually stepped into a different area from the closed tunnel which was the cave so far, ending up in a room that had a huge open space. One could see the ceiling was quite high, to the extent our voices could perfectly echo around from the back. Translucent shining ice walls created a hemispherical form that was dyed with different colors. I greatly admired the magnificent view, which was like nothing I had seen up to now. Sorry Kanna, but try to focus your eyes on the centermost position of the ceiling. Raising my eyes as I was told. Indeed, at the highest point on the ceiling, it immediately came to view that a gigantic hole was there. Strong winds were flowing through that place, bringing the cold air. To think the hole would be in a high ceiling. And there is no place to climb. Should I summon the dragon? No, if we go outside now we'll only bump into the snowstorm. The moment we leave, such strong wind is enough to smash us on the rocks. That reason was why we initially did not use the dragon this time around, and we ended up walking. Additionally, thanks to not being familiar with the local area and since it's dark, we could only bet on flying at blind, which would end up being dangerous. Rather, I'm cold. Is this room the coldest place here? Indeed. Even I started feeling the cold. In any event, we'll have to show our guts and stand the cold until morning. By the time the snowstorm stops, by summoning the dragon we'll get out. We should focus on preserving our stamina until then, and since this is the coldest part, we'll return to near the entrance of the cave. There are no other options. Finding a hole that leads outside is already a great thing. From here on, the girl and I can only face straight on this endurance race to see how weakened we are until morning. Return to the part of the cave where it's less cold and quietly resist there without moving a finger. I glanced around one last time with the girl at my back before turning back. But before that, I felt as if my eyes were sucked towards the central part of this space. It is only now that I noticed this. A strange shining object is placed at the center. It's long and narrow like a stick. That cylinder grows out from the hard rock. Oi, real, what do you think is that? That's a lance? Focusing where I said, Real narrowed her eyes and unveiled the identity of the object. In all probability, the elf's eyesight may be many-fold stronger than that of us humans. For that reason she can't be mistaken. At that time a rejection, a subtle feeling that I shouldn't leave was born. When you find a weapon in a place like this, the normal would be for a shady story to be related to it. In the fairy tales I know at least. Stuff like this is the usual pattern. Normally, it shouldn't possibly be like that. But there are such stories around as well. More than that, if there is a story that comes with this, it's probably something about a seal. If the weapon on itself gets sealed, then it's probably something you wouldn't want to touch. And so it is. It's not an unpleasant feeling. It is not. But I still feel like I'm going to bump into a great crisis. Ever since I ended up in this world, it's as if my sixth sense was awakened. I'm feeling uneasy now. The best would be if we don't even look at it, agreed. After a serious consents, without even looking we were to proceed back. Moving my sight, by coincidence I saw the ceiling. Something like a magic formation appeared in the air. Seriously? The formation was completely composed by light. The image was very similar to the formation on the floor that was used to summon me to this world and was at the castle. Real also seems to have noticed the abnormality. Her eyes raised to the air and glimpsed the formation. Crap, it has to be a guardian, no need to guess. It's here to protect that spear. There are plenty of those in RPGs. As the name implies, it's the last ordeal place to protect the treasure. It does look like that spear has a shady story attached. Unauthorized entry probably won't be forgiven, thus a summoning trap was established to deal with those who approach. Well, Kanna, what now? Why is the opinion of me, who is a total beginner in this world, keeps being asked? My vote naturally goes to running away. The truth of the issue is that surely you believe that worrying about bothersome things is too much of a pain. I'm a knight after all. Don't put a satisfied face in this situation. I strongly played the straight man. In a fluster I went back to the entrance of this space. Not even talking about me, I have the village girl on my back. From the start we didn't have the aim of hunting for treasures, but just to rescue this girl. The light from behind became way more noticeable. It has to be from the summoning formation. After a short period, a big sound and violent tremors could be felt on the floor. I exerted my guts as not to have my legs entangled, and I made a full speed dash towards the entrance. Only a little bit more, as I almost said that. A large shadow could be seen at my feet. Step aside, Real. Real, who was running in front of me, was only a couple of steps from the exit of this area. However, as soon as my voice reached her, she jumped to the side. Almost at the same time, the sound of something incredibly large could be heard landing in the place where she just was. Chapter 6, Ice Giant Draws Near. Finally some visual confirmation, huh? With a body completely made out of ice that's over 3 meters tall, it's a giant completely made out of ice. It's also translucent with several colors, but white is a more prominent one. The appearance is like a giant armor without a neck, and on his hand it has a gigantic sword fit for his size. This is one of those guys known as Ice Golem, huh? You know about golems? They are man-made life created by pouring magic power into them. It's an automatic doll. The frozen golem stands in front of us in a way that perfectly blocks the entrance. Obviously, it won't allow us through so easily. Can you beat it? I wonder? For golems, the basics is that their capacity changes greatly depending on who created them. And it's easy to tell that to make a golem of that size one needs considerable skill. The motion she performs to ready her sword is the same one she did when fending off the wolves. However, unlike then, now clear traces of tension could be seen in her face. I'll face this guy. Kanna, in the meantime, uses the gap and takes away the Ojo-san. Just leave this place. Since he is a guard, he won't give chase if it means leaving. Roger. I could feel weight in my mouth as I blurted a positive answer. I'm aware that her plan is certainly the most feasible. But having no choice other than using Real as a decoy is something that feels pretty damn bad. Don't worry, after exchanging some blows, I'll be sure to run away as well. I don't have any suicidal tendencies. She only barely sided her face and then smiled at me. That face, it struck me heavily. I took the chance to see the girl on my back. She was shaking with fear. Her sight was not directed at me nor appealed for any requests. However, now I can only smile just like Real has. I can't die in a place like this. Our two hearts are probably engraved with these same words. If not, we would have never had made it outside that castle. Well then. Let's go. Real advanced, wielding that heavy giant sword and with enough power that her steps crashed the ground. With enough speed that I wouldn't think of possible. I also added power to my legs, taking a stance that would allow me to run at any time. The right time is when Real attack lands square. Once that's done, the Guardian will set his aim fully on her. She will probably concentrate her attacks to leave a gap for me to escape. It's simple. But we can only proceed with a plan like this. That's why I need to pull all of my effort there. The golem reacts to Real's movement, brandishing his own sword. It was then, only a few seconds away from their swords engaging, that the golem jumped. A large jump, unthinkable for such large mass with great momentum added. Real's sword struck nothing. Her balance completely broken. There is no way that I'm just going to watch this till the end. I don't have that time. Because even while it's on the air, I can tell that the landing point of the golem is right behind Real, the place I had planned running towards. Hey, you have to be kidding me. Up until now in my life, this has to be the most excellent, worthy of respect ultra-fast reaction I have ever had. Before the golem reached the highest point of his leap, my body was already sliding sideways to another direction. The giant gave a strong swing to the location where I just was. Gravity and body strength worked together to pulverize the floor's surface with a ground-shattering impact. The aftermath of said impact struck my legs. Once again I made use of a yet-to-be-seen-in-my-life sense of balance to keep myself standing and made a beeline towards the entrance. It was then when I felt a shiver in the temple of my head. Trusting that feeling, I bent my whole body forward. When I was half-bented, I had the sensation of a large mass that created winds pass through the place where my head would normally have been. My face collapsed to the ground. When I directed my eyeline there, I noticed the giant ice sword was sweeping the air, and the golem had thrown it. "Are you safe, little girl?" I'm safe." After hearing that terrified reply, I stood up and turned around to check the golem. From the now empty arms of the golem, ice stretched, giving out a cracking sound. Within seconds a new sword was created. Give me a break. I once again readied to break into a run. At the same time the golem was readying to throw his new sword. "Dia!" A great shock ran through the side of that enormous body. Real hammered that arm with a tremendous attack with that giant sword which is as big as a person. While the difference in volume was obvious, Real's strike was spectacular enough to completely overwhelm the body of the golem. The frozen giant flew for a moment to then crash loudly into the ground. That's some outrageous power even if it's from an ally. That great power is enough to bring chills to my spine. Retreat now, Kanna. Sadly, I have no time for assenting words. Now is the time to run quickly towards the entrance. However, reality seems to be cruel. The Ice Titan forcefully threw his sword even from a knockdown position. The target is not real nor me. And thinking that it failed to throw would be an overly hasty conclusion. The giant ice sword landed on top of the exit that I was just dashing towards. The impact of a great mass and speed is exactly what would correspond to the description. The vicinity of the tunnel was completely destroyed. It came broken down with a large doon sound effect. I can't immediately compute the scene in front of my eyes. Thus my own run towards that place was not stopped and I set foot on where the exit once was. Touching the mountain of rubble that covers the only exit, I am forced to finally face reality. Perfectly trapped. Deprived of the sole means of escaping, a complete sensation of despair fills my body. Even then, I refuse to give in to hopelessness and I refuse to release the power on my feet. The reason being the extra weight I feel on my back. Blocked in every direction. Before I realized Real was already at my side. I felt her breathing on my shoulder. It looks like she had already given some blows to that giant. The person who made that golem surely has an amazing ability. Someone who is able to perform such a precise automatic control is already worthy of the royal court of most countries. And how amazing is that? With 10 people like that, you can overturn thousands of troops fighting without any tricks. That's monster level. Once said that, just for a millisecond. Real's eyes wavered. Real. Please hold this a little away, Kanna. I forcefully passed the girl to Real before she could say anything. Then I made a dash without stopping. From when I started moving, the ice giant switched his course to me. Demolish it, Real. Just once, I pointed my finger behind her. Damn, so I have to do this. Real instinctively got my intention in an instant and readied her stance towards the blocked escapeway. It really is mysterious. Ever since we met, she can read my intentions perfectly with me only varly phrasing some words about it. Don't die like this, Kanna. After such outcry, Real mows down the blockade horizontally with her sword. A great deal of rubble was blown away with each swing. The ice golem completely ignored Real's actions and kept turning as if to always face my direction, so it was true. It's unknown why, but this giant has designated me as the target from the start. Thinking back, since it appeared, the golem attacks have always involved me in some form, while completely ignoring Real, whose firepower is the only threat. Originally I had no way of ruling out that it wasn't me, but the village girl that was in my back. But after leaving her with Real, the fact is that he isn't even looking at her right now. Understanding that much, it becomes simple. I just need to fill in the role of decoy that originally Real assumed. I'll get his attention and Real will dig the way out. This is what's known as the right person in the right place. If there is a problem with this is The giant gave yet another jump, strongly swinging its blade from an overhead position. He did this by the time I was screaming. The problem is that I need to survive until the excavation work on the exit is done. My parallel world life is way too filled with violence, while renewing my resentment towards that princess and her whole family for having selfishly called me here. I increase the distance between me and real. It's true that I'm the target now, but there is no guarantee that it won't switch to real later. Probably it's because such a large object can't ensure other means of fast movement. But the giant kept chasing me with leaping attacks again and again. Each time I narrowly dodged, I felt as if my soul was being chipped away. I kept a zigzag-shaped evasive route, and I'm fully aware that the moment my legs fail, it'll be my last. Probably it's due to the fear of becoming minced meat, but right now keeping my balance while running at full strength is quite the ordeal. Ever since arriving in this world, I have tasted it. God knows how many times. That chill runs down my spine, feeling which is now warning me about each and every time the giant makes a leap. Right now the feeling is slightly different. I turn my sight to notice that the golem is taking different action than before. He is not straddling for a jump start. He raised overhead that giant sword. Is he going to throw it again? But he did not throw it. He stabbed deeply at the ground with it, smashing the surface. After that, a countless number of icebergs popped from the ground. That large amount of mountain swords came lunging, directed at me while crushing everything on their way. The speed was much lower than throwing the sword, but the targeted area increased many folds. I barely escaped a direct hit from the group of raising icebergs. But the aftermath of the attack bulged the ground and sent me flying. Not landing headfirst was the only fortune. My back struck the ground and I was sent rolling. The force of the impact made me discharge a lot of oxygen from my mount. That made my field of vision blink reddish-brown. After hitting on a metallic object, my rolling was stopped. I felt as the pain ran across my body as if it was cracked. I somehow lifted my upper body. I was thrown quite far away from the straight line of icebergs. I guess that's the true meaning of being blown away. Checking the starting point of the iceberg attack, I noticed that footsteps of the golems were drawing close. Kanna! Real stopped the work on the entrance and ran towards the golem. The distance is just too far apart, while the golem movements are slow. The distance covered with each step is just too different. The golem will get here long before she does. I withstand the pain in my body, and stand up by forcing my knees. Damn bastards don't screw around. If there is pain, that means that I'm still alive. Since I'm alive, it's natural that I can move my body. I glare at the approaching ice giant. I clench my own teeth as if to break them and pour more strength into my legs. Nougat! As if they had run out of oil, every joint in my body screams in pain. But I manage to stand up. The ice giant is no longer in sight. I don't have time to be immersed in despair nor leeway to remember how to be afraid. What only matters is surviving. Keep moving forward. You can't afford to give up here. Chapter 7, Kanna learns the reason. Oni-san. A familiar voice warms my heart. In a spur of the moment, I turned towards the owner of the voice. And standing there was the young girl we came to rescue, but there it was something different. Her hair was different. The hair that was light brown so far, was now transparent blue in color. What is it, little girl? I thought you'd be more surprised by this situation. The girl said, surprised as she touched her own hair. It's true that I'm a little bit surprised. I can't argue that. She should have been right next to real. Just how did she get here? But, you don't give off a bad feeling. Why, it's because of me that Oni-san got into this mess, you know? This situation is quite pressing. However, I felt like continuing the talk with this little girl, with this woman. It's not like you did it with bad intentions, right? However, a doubt arose from this exchange. "But, it's really your fault?" "It is." She confirmed it without any shyness. "All of what Oni-san has been through in this place. In the end, I'm the cause. It has all been a consequence of what I have done." "Ah! Just what could a little lolly like you do?" While I'm laughing up to my nose, on the inside I'm trying to bury an ominous conviction. This woman, or rather, this something that has the shape of a woman, has to be the source of origin of the current course of events. If I look to the side, I can tell that both the golem that is close by or real who is far away are not moving an inch. It's as if their time has been stopped. Right now I'm accelerating Oni-san's spirit several hundred times more than normal. You can relax. Don't say it straight like that. It's not like I can relax now. This is like one of those near-death slow-motion last minutes, right? The moment things start to move again, at that point I'm sure to be killed. True, at this rate you're sure to die. Don't add a cute face to that straightforward commentary. While I'm on the verge of being cut down, the woman whispers, "Don't you want power like mine?" After saying such, she gave one step to the side. What was revealed behind her was that shining silver spear. So that's what I collided with when I was sent rolling. Oi, are you telling me that this really is a legendary weapon? As if I know. This is something that the humans arbitrarily used as a chain, but it's true that from a human perspective, this might fit the description of legendary weapon. Oi, would you please give me a break with those jokes, lolly girl? I'll say it straight, but I'm just this poor 17th-year-old guy who is known for having no competency, no talent and no results, you know? It's miserable to say such self-deprecating things, but it's a fact. It's to the extent that you can say that Kami-sama disliked me. It doesn't matter what it is, I just don't have an ounce of talent when trying it. As a baby, it took a long time for me to be able to stand on two legs. I needed for about twice as much time than everyone else when learning to speak. When running, I am slow. And my body is actually relatively frail. It doesn't matter in which area I give it a try, I always fall behind everyone else. And that did not change at all after I got summoned to this world. It's the main reason why I ran away from that wicked princess. I touched this one before, but in this world magic is a popular art. And it doesn't matter where you look in this world, all things in nature have magic power. The me who was summoned to this world to become a hero, at the end even then it was no exception. It's worse as others had the expectation that the one summoned would possess a tremendous amount of magic. And that's where it was, when the court magician at the castle was asked to measure my magic power. Everyone was astonished because the quantity was 0. In my case I understood reality quickly. Even the ordinary populace tend to have 10 or 20 in size. It doesn't matter where you look, you won't find someone with 0. That's why they had no use for me. Really, you called me at your own bloody convenience. And when you realized that I didn't have the talent, you selfishly tried to cut me off. Just what sort of tyrant is that? Just what do you think people are? Some worms crawling down there? I was amazed by the tremendous discharge of words I had saved. After all, I really need to have that wicked princess regret what she has done while I am at it, her followers too. Do you feel indignation? That's a given. I'll never let go of this grudge. Absolutely get retribution for your grudges, happens to be my principle. I don't care if the opponent is royalty or nobility. I have been like this for a long time, and I'll be like this in the future as well. Get twice as much worth for your resentment, that's the basics of the basics. You know? That's true. It's because you are like this that you are my chosen one, and thus, the woman grabbed my hand and led me somewhere. It doesn't matter which sort of humiliation you are smeared with, stains will never touch your soul. It doesn't matter who it is, you'll never be broken. You are completely devoid of any colors. Oh, oi! You who were never loved by God, became an abhorrence outside the scope of God's children. No one can shackle you in this world. You are a solitary king by her guidance. My hand would touch the silver spear. Now, children of Kanna, grab this spear. Tennessee. It's implied here that she is basically calling him child without a god, or child forgotten by God. Why? What's next is up to you, do your best. Oni-san. At the end, the face of this girl finally had a bright smile. Then my thoughts became divided. In an instant, intense pain was transmitted through the hand that had touched the spear. No. Gah. In time, it was just but a moment. However, it was as if the core of my body was broken through by a huge impact. It was a sensation of having my thoughts stretched over many folds. As if last-minute cramming for the midterm exams for every subject was squeezed into my brain and then repeating that many times in my head. As I was thinking that my blood vessels would rupture, but even before that, the shock was enough to stop my heartbeat. That lolly girl, she did as she pleased for the sake of advancing her story. My field of vision swayed, the same as if I had suffered from anemia. I bear with it somehow. The moment I grasped that silver spear, I understood that something flowed inside me. I have no other words to describe that something other than something that I feel as if it's being poured inside my head. An overwhelming amount of information is forcefully transferred in. The conversation I had with that female-shaped life form, I somehow remember it. But I feel that I'm missing the last bit. Just how did it end up as a solitary king thing? But other than that, it's ambiguous. I feel that it was something really important. A shade is covering my field of vision. That means there is something big on top of me, right? A little bit outside from that point of vision, the ice giant was there slicing with his great sword. Ah, this is bad. Right after I gave a mutter as if the current situation did not concern me, a giant ice sword was almost touching me. In front of this premonition of death, I heard the muttering of a voice. You should understand how it's used. A voice then was trying to guide me wrong. The voice purposely pointed me towards the conclusion. You can, said such intuition. Freeze. At the same time the tip of the ice blade was to touch my forehead, it was suddenly stopped from moving. It's not like if the giant himself stopped the blade, it was I who stopped it. That's for certain. To phrase is better, every joint in the body of this giant is now frozen. In the first place, this guy is mainly made of ice. Thanks to that, to the current me he no longer is a big deal. I proceeded to take off the heavy clothes I had been wearing until now. Those clothes meant to block the cold are already of no use for me. The air around me is completely chill, however that doesn't bother me anymore. Before falling into doubts, I moved according to my feelings. Even with the joints completely hardened, the giant still tries to move. If that's the case, then I just need to take it out. The large ice sword that's in between my eyebrows, I take off my gloves and touch it. Usually, just touching something at this temperature would end in frostbite. I stretch my hands nonetheless. I'll be taking this, oh yeah. With just some effort, the handle of the sword was broken. It's not like superhuman strength was used. It was just a process where the bind of water molecules maintaining the ice was weakened. The great bulk of the blade is in my hands, merely using it as it is would be hard. Let's focus the image. Something like an axe, would be fine. With a cracking noise, the large part of the blade changes shape, becoming a large axe in my hands. Its size is great, the handle alone is about as tall as I am. The blade part is as big as my upper body. Although the ice giant cannot move, perhaps wanting a new weapon, he is now extending a bulk of ice from the handle that's in his hands, as if to replace the blade that was lost. Well, before that happens, smash into pieces. I jump ahead, there is no technique to this. I merely give a large swing with all of my power. The axe sinks easily into the middle of the head of this golem. Instead of screams, the sound of collapsing glass resounded all over the place. What the hell is this? After the event, I was surprised by the axe that was in my hands. Oi, what was I doing just now? How was that the golem ended up pulverized? Rather, what's with this ice axe? Kanna. While I was confused, Real approached. Oi, are you safe? If asked if I'm safe, I'm safe, but... I see. I was wondering what was going to happen for a second. After breathing in relief, Real glanced at the destroyed golem. Even so, I was surprised. To think you'll make use of spells. You said you couldn't use magic, were you hiding it? No, it's different. I instinctively denied that this was what's called magic. This is not magic, it's something that's fundamentally different in nature. I can't remember the exact words. Is it because I don't have knowledge about this world? I don't have a proper understanding of what the concept of magic is about, but there is a strange intuition that leads me to say this. To borrow human words, the name should be something like spirit magic? The voice of a third party. Turning around, a beautiful woman with long blue hair was there where the spear was supposed to. The sight of a feminine softness came into view. It's a disproportionate appearance for this extremely cold place. Intuitively, I understood that she was that girl. At the same time, I also knew that she is not a human being. Her presence can't be felt at all. While gulping, Real noticed something strange. I asked a question to the blue-haired beauty instead. Just how much of this was planned beforehand? Some unexpected opening words. Have you perhaps piled pent-up resentment? That's not wrong, but more than that, I want to clarify, what were you responsible of, interesting child? Her greeting had a ring which sounded as if it was spelling those words.